Welcome to Tailboard Talk, a fourth shift fitcast. The mission of Tailboard Talk and the fourth shift fitness is to educate and train fire service personnel to increase durability and decrease the potential for injuries and their associated costs. My name is Chris Morella, owner and founder of Fourth Shift Fitness. I'll use my experience as a personal trainer, strength coach, and 15-year veteran of the fire service to deliver tips, tricks, lessons, and information specifically geared towards the health and wellness of firefighters and paramedics. Each episode, you'll leave with immediate deliverables that will improve performance and resilience and keep you in the fight through your career and into retirement. Let's get into it. Hey, what's up everyone? Chris from Fourth Shift Fitness. Welcome to Tailboard Talk, and I'm pretty excited about this episode today. It's an interview with Ryan Maines. If you've been watching my Instagram, you'll see that I've been running more in the past week and a half than in the past 5 years of my life. And that's directly a result of Ryan Maines and his charity, Run for Our Lives. He is an Army veteran. He's also a veteran of the fire department who just 2 years ago, was deemed unfit for duty due to PTSD and mental health concerns. That process is still ongoing, and so we're not going to get into too much detail about the actual pension case because that has no resolution yet. What we are going to talk about is his time in the Army, his time leading up to his disability, and then how he's going forward with treatment now. We talk about ketamine a little bit. He's doing ketamine treatment. But we also talk about Run for Our Lives. That's the charity that Ryan started in 2019 before he was discharged from duty. And that's what I'm participating this year. I just want to make it clear, you're going to hear more about it in the episode, obviously, but he runs 1 kilometer for every verified suicide of fire and EMS, something that we use that same number for Devote December. So it's a cause and a number that's very near and dear to my heart and Annette Zapp's heart. Now we get, for the virtual run, we get 2 months to complete 115 kilometers, representing that 115 fire and EMS that committed suicide. Ryan does it all in one day. So he runs that 115 kilometers on May 22nd, starts at midnight, and runs until he's done. You're going to hear a lot more about that, but that's a small detail that we hit on, but kind of quickly. Just want to get you the full scope of what this guy is doing to raise money to help Illinois Firefighter Peer Support, who is the organization that helped him in some of his darkest moments. So, without further ado, here is Ryan Maines' Run for Our Lives. Okay, so you joined Woodstock in 2005, but how many years were you in the Army before Woodstock?
It was 4 years. I enlisted in '99 and got out in '03.
Okay, and that's a relatively hairy time in the world. I know I had some friends who were in the military in various branches, and that was a real hairy time. Where was your action? Where was your detail when you were in the Army?
I was stationed out of Fort Benning, Georgia.
Okay, cool.
And you say it was a hairy time. When I enlisted, there wasn't anything going on. It was, 1999. It was pre 9/11, and I
Right,
had no
yeah.
idea what I was I had no idea what I was signing up for.
Yeah.
Um, but having said that, I wouldn't trade the time I had in the military for anything. A lot of lifelong friendships made, and it was like my college experience. People say they go to college and grow up, and that's kind of how the Army was for me. I did a
Mhm.
lot of growing there, and um, in in fall of 2002, we did a rotation through Kuwait, which didn't seem odd to me because it was like a constant rotation of units there since the first war in Iraq. So then we came home in December, I want to say it was, of '02, went right back in January of '01, and it still didn't, or of '03, still didn't occur to me why I was going back so quickly until we started doing specific trainings, and then the light bulb went off, and the reality of it set in. And on March 20th, we crossed the border and didn't look back.
Wow. So directly after that, then you transitioned out of the military.
Yeah, I got out in '03,
Okay.
and almost immediately got myself into a fire academy and through McHenry County College, and then I got into paramedic school the following year. Went through Sherman Hospital's
Oh,
paramedic
nice.
program.
Nice, man. And you were
Yeah,
saying before you were saying that this is kind of a family thing, right?
yeah. My dad was on the job. Growing up, my dad became a paramedic when I was 8 or 9. So pretty much from the time I was young, I grew up
Hmm.
in the firehouse, and he got hired full time in Downers Grove. I think I was teenager, 12, 13, somewhere around there.
Sure.
So I spent time there, and when I became 18, I was a volunteer in the local department because I live in a small town, Burlington. It's like the halfway point between Elgin and DeKalb.
Yeah.
People only know it for the bar, and we have a stoplight now. It used to just be used to
Oh.
say the stop sign between Elgin and DeKalb was Burlington, but we're big time now, and there's a stoplight.
So, okay, so got hired pretty quick in Woodstock, right?
Yeah, just one of those things, just dumb luck. I was like everybody does. I took as many tests as I could, but it was only a few months of testing before
Jeez.
I was fortunate enough to be called by Woodstock, and it was actually their second wave of career firefighters. The first was in 2003, and then we were hired in '05. So I
Whoa.
was badge number 9,
No
and
kidding.
yeah, then within the next 5 years, I think we added 20 to 25-ish more people.
So you're the old
And
salty guy, like right off the bat, huh?
yeah, I got a lot of seniority real quick. Um, and then by the time I left, I think we had 35 career members and a handful of part timers, and
Wow.
yeah,
Okay, so you alluded to it quickly, that you left, and this is kind of the crux of the story. And that I want you to tell it at your own pace, but this is kind of where I wanted to kick this thing off because your story is still evolving. It's still not settled. And so we're only going to talk about, in generalities, we're going to talk about the lessons learned in circumstance. But um, like I told you, once this thing gets settled, you're going to definitely be back on and help me out with that information because you pursuing a line of duty disability for mental health is something that I think is going to be more common. Um, and quite honestly, there's just not a lot of assistance or resources out there for it. And I think that your story in navigating the process is going to be extremely valuable. So in the future, that's going to be an episode for sure. But for now, if you would just take me back to kind of what led over your decade plus at Woodstock, what led to you deciding to leave early and pursue a line of duty disability for mental health?
yeah. Um, so I don't remember exactly when I started seeing our EAP. Probably around 2014. I was feeling like just depressed and you know just generally down spirited, and that wasn't something that happened a lot, so I wasn't used to it. I knew something was off, so I called our EAP rep and started going there, and um, it started real infrequently. I would just go there, and you know I didn't really ever talk. I'd just go in there and sit and be real vague about my feelings because I'm this tough alpha male and I don't have feelings. And slowly but surely, the frequency of me going there picked up over the course of the years. But it would kind of ebb and flow. I never really knew what was going on with me. I just I knew that I didn't like how I felt, and I was being real short with people, and I'd have like just short temper and things like that. So eventually, the therapist put out the PTSD, the diagnosis. She called it PTSD, and um, I I didn't agree with her. Putting it lightly, I'm not sure how vulgar you want me to be, but I told her she'd go fuck herself. I didn't believe her. I thought she was full of shit.
Wow.
And that's how I felt for several years. I just kept going back and not really talking, but sitting in the office, and in my mind, I'm thinking I'm getting therapy. I'm doing the right things, and um, whenever we'd have a traumatic call, I was always the first guy to, hey everybody, let's go to this debriefing, and but I never really opened up, and I didn't, and that's in retrospect. I thought at the time, I'm doing all these right things, um, and then that just kind of kept snowballing, getting traumatic calls and not taking the time to process it, but not realizing that I wasn't taking the time to process it, and it all kind of came crashing together for me in March of 2019. Um, March has typically been kind of a rough month for me because it's the anniversary of the invasion of Iraq, so it kind of brings back all those bad memories and things that I try not to think about from over there, and so it was always kind of a rough month for me. But that month in particular hit me really hard, or that year rather, hit me really hard, and I got real lethargic. I started calling off sick to work. Um, missing shifts, just like I couldn't bear the thought of going into the firehouse anymore. I didn't even want to leave my bed. And I didn't admit it at the time, but I was having suicidal ideations. I I didn't like how I felt, and like I didn't know that I could feel better, and it just like I hate, it's just like this empty bad feeling hanging over me. And my wife finally called me out on it, and basically did 100% of the legwork to get me help. She is a very she started her career as a journalist, so she's very tenacious, and
Mhm.
she handles those things very well. And she made all the phone calls and reached out to the Illinois Peer Support group, and they helped walk her through what to do for me, and kept me on the phone talking so that everybody knew I was okay. And um, so they were able to get me into the Center of Excellence, which is a inpatient facility that the International opened up. I think in 2017, maybe 2018. It wasn't real old when I went. Um, so I went there and did my 30 days inpatient, and came back and felt strong, felt good. I was ready to go back to work and was pretty excited to do it. But I still kind of had like this self stigma of what was going on. I felt real self conscious about the fact that I was gone. So when I went back to work, I decided that I wanted to go and talk to all the crews individually, because I felt like if I didn't, I would constantly be thinking people were like whispering in the shadows,
Mm. Yeah.
So I went and I talked to every crew, shift by shift, house by house, and just kind of gave them like a Reader's Digest version of what I just been through, and what I did at the center, and things that I felt like could be helpful for them in the future, and things like that. And almost every crew, after I did that, somebody would pull me aside and be like, "Hey, when you said that, I can relate to that." Or if you said this happened to you, that's happening to me right now. And
Mm.
like the light bulb went off that maybe I'm not the only one dealing with this. Maybe other people are struggling too.
Wow. So,
And
so when you came back from so two things that we went through them quickly because obviously you're very familiar with them, but you mentioned the Illinois Peer Support Group. So it's the Illinois Firefighter Peer Support Group, and that's one of the symposiums that Annette and I have spoken at, and we saw your wife there, which got me more interested in your story. and you said they were the ones that kind of facilitated getting you into the IAFF Center for Excellence, right?
Yeah, yeah. They kind of gave Danielle like a shotgun approach of these are different programs that are available to you.
Okay.
Um, and I chose the Center of Excellence because one, I didn't want to be local because I was worried that I was going to run into a patient or
Oh, okay.
something like that. Like I didn't want anybody I knew to see me there.
Hmm.
Um, so I didn't want to be local, and the thought of being in treatment with other firefighters was very appealing because I kept thinking if I'm in this room with all these people that don't know what I do, and I'm telling my stories, they can't relate to that. They can't
Right.
relate to being on the job. So it was very comforting to know that the people sitting next to me can relate to me as a as a person and as a career and stuff like that. So that was ultimately why I chose that that place.
Yeah. And that's such a big deal, man. I mean, that's got to be the number one, um, I don't want to say complaint, but like common thing that we as firefighters and paramedics say, whether it's rehab, physical rehab, uh, some sort of uh, substance abuse, general psychotherapy, anything. The biggest difficulty is finding a provider that understands what you're talking about and that you don't feel like you have to teach them what you do for a bulk of the session. There's definitely been a trend of more of those places popping up. Do you remember how many that were kind of available with people that were specifically familiar with the fire service? How many did Danielle have to choose from, or did you have to
There
choose
were
from?
two that worked with firefighters
Wow.
specifically, or not even worked with, but just were kind of geared towards the Center of Excellence, which is an IAFF run center. So that's exclusively firefighters, and then there was the Florian program in Rockford,
Yeah.
um, and that is not entirely firefighters, but they have a program that's like designed for firefighters.
Sure. Yeah, it's not a lot, right? It's not a lot of
No,
offerings.
no, there's not a lot to choose from. Although the international either is opening or just opened a center in California, I think, and
Nice.
there's talk of another one in Colorado, and then another one more local Midwest. I don't know exactly where, but
Yeah. Because the
there's
first the
definitely a need for it.
oh yeah, yours was in Maryland, right? Was it Maryland?
Yeah, Maryland.
Yeah. So they're going to cover both coasts and get to the flyover states eventually, right?
Right,
Um,
yeah.
okay, so you went there and you said you were inpatient for 30 days, and then you came back and you talked to the crews. Were you talking to them as like, do you remember your mentality? Were you talking to them as like, hey, I went through this thing and I'm over it, and here's how I did it? Or were you talking to them as like, hey, this is an ongoing thing. Here's how I'm working through this, so bear with me.
It was a little bit of both.
Mm,
I knew that I wasn't cured per se, but I thought that it was not going to be as prevalent as it was.
okay,
So I yeah, it was a little bit of both.
okay, and obviously, overwhelmingly receptive to what you were telling them. Like you said, people came up to you and opened up to you in probably ways you didn't expect. So that's, I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
kudos to you for doing it, all that, and then to your group out there for being uh, good humans.
yeah, yeah. I think when you identify someone that has a similar struggle, it gives you like that bond that you can share that with them, and they're going to understand what you're saying because they're also feeling that exact same way.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
think that's why peer support, the Illinois Firefighter Peer Support, is so important because I can pick up the phone and I'm going to be talking to someone that's either on the job or retired from the job, so they can 100% relate,
uh,
and they can get you a therapist that's been vetted by firefighters, and you're not going to go in there and have to explain to people what you do, or they're not going to be caught off guard by you explaining the traumatic incident that you just had to go through,
Right. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely right, man. Okay, so you're back, you talked to your crews, and you're feeling good, rocking and rolling, and you're back on the job now. So take it from there.
Yeah, so after I got back, the district put me on a week of light duty, just kind of ease back into it. My lieutenant offered to have me drive the truck for a month after getting back on shift, just to kind of ease me back into it, so I wasn't, being thrown to the wolves right away as the lone medic on an ambulance or something. But just as luck would have it, within those first couple of weeks, we ran several full arrests and pretty significant calls that really like tore open wounds that hadn't really healed yet. And I tried to just like keep plugging along and trying to just pretend that I was okay, but it it never really got better. I struggled, and it I could feel myself after a few months. I could feel myself just kind of starting to slip back into that dark badness. And so that's when I started going back to or I was continuing to see the therapist, but that's when I started talking about those feelings again. And she told me, "You're done. You can't go back. You're not fit for duty anymore."
Hmm.
And so that's when I enrolled in the second program that I went through, which was at Alexian and Hoffman. And so I enrolled there in October of 19 and was an outpatient program there 5 days a week until the end of January, basically, just doing exposure therapy and all kinds of different therapies there to try and like build up my resilience.
Hmm. That was different therapy and a different approach you'd seen at the Center for Excellence, right?
It was, yeah. The Center of Excellence didn't use exposure therapy per se. It was like a combination of like some exposure, some talk therapy. But Alexian was almost exclusively exposure therapy, which it was difficult. It was really really hard to do. But the way the way I like to describe it to people is like when you jump in a pool and the water's cold, you're like, oh my God, it's so cold. Well, the more you stay in the water, the more you get used to it, and then it's
Hmm.
fine. Well, it's kind of what exposure therapy is like they expose you to like this trauma that you had, and like force you to deal with it. And the more you do, you realize that you're okay, and then all of a sudden it you can still recognize the trauma, but it's not as painful.
Hmm. Wow. And did you find more result in that than the Center of Excellence, or were they just different methods for different times in your life?
Yeah, I think different methods for different times in my life, and I think the experiences that I had at the center helped like shape the experience that I had at Alexian.
Okay. Hmm. And so we're going to come back to this obviously because it leads into what the future is with Run for Our Lives. But you had already started planning that well before any of the decisions were made that you weren't going to be working anymore.
Yeah, I started planning that the summer of 19.
Okay.
After coming back from the Center of Excellence, I knew that I wanted to do something for Illinois Firefighter Peer Support, because I was so grateful for the help that they gave us and the support that they gave my wife, like to get through that initial shock of her realizing how bad I really was. They were pretty instrumental in getting us through that. So I knew I wanted to do something, and I'm kind of a runner by nature, and so that was my first thought. I'm like I'm gonna run like Forrest Gump, and just people can donate money, and I'll raise awareness that way.
Hmm.
So I started talking to some people about it, and my running coach actually said, "Hey, I've been wanting to do a virtual event for years now. Why don't we combine these two ideas? We can do a virtual event where people run virtually with you, and then you can do the live event also.
Yeah.
And so it just kind of snowballed from there. And we ended up having 130 virtual runners last year. We were able to raise around just shy of $20,000, which
Wow.
far exceeded my
Wow.
my goal. When I started planning, my goal was 5,000, and eventually the rest of the group got me to change my mind. 10,000 was a better number, and we passed 10,000 within the first couple months. So it was pretty great.
Wow. So going to that a little bit, and of course we'll get back to the timeline, but as we're talking about Run for Our Lives, you do something that Annette and I have done with Devote December and Spring for Changes. You use a very specific number for your distance. So go into how you determine that, and then also what the virtual versus the big time live event is.
Yeah. Okay. So last year we did 130 kilometers, and that was 1 kilometer for every firefighter or EMS personnel that died by suicide in 2019. And I wanted to use the number because I thought it was important that people knew that. Because anytime I brought that up, the reaction was almost always, "Oh my God, I had no idea."
Right.
And so I wanted that number to be out there. You know, it's an appalling number. And so we in the subsequent year, this year, we used the number again. Fortunately, it's a little less. It's 115 this year, but that's still 115 people that we lost last year.
Yeah, it's one of those things, man. It's outpacing line of duty deaths, like fireground line of duty deaths, or even cardiac events. And you're right. That's the same reaction that Annette and I get when we do our campaigns is like disbelief, and
Hmm.
then um, the next is like, well, what do we do? And then we say, well, we're working on it. It's like we do as much as we can for now, and then eventually we'll be able to do more. But the first thing is getting the number out there and letting people know exactly that there is an issue, and then we can start to build from there. So the virtual event and you use the same number, right? How far are you going to run in one day?
I'll be running 115 kilometers on May 22nd. So basically, I go from downtown Woodstock to Crystal Lake, get on the Fox River Trail bike path there, and run down to St. Charles, and then turn around and come back.
And last year was, like you said, longer, but there was also an added bonus of severe flooding on your course.
Yeah, yeah, that was a pleasant surprise.
Because what time
I
do you start? You
actually,
start overnight, right?
yeah, I started at midnight.
Okay.
Last year I started on midnight on May 30th, and I did some route recon a few days before because I knew that we had had flooding, and I knew that there were spots that tended to flood. So I drove and checked out as many as I thought I had. I missed one apparently because as we were running past McHenry County College at 12:30 at night, I found like knee deep water that we had to wade through.
Yeah.
It was it was fun. It was a good experience.
Oh, dude, I remember, not to like rub it in or anything, but I remember knowing the event was going on, and then waking up. I think I was working that day and seeing just a handful of updates, and then like the first update I see is you in the dark wading through water. I was like, oh, that's great. Like this poor guy, I've been sleeping for the past 5 hours. He's been literally wading through mud, and then running. Just incredible, man. So how long did it take you to get through your total distance?
It was more than 21 hours, but less than 22. I don't remember exactly. It was closer to 22 hours.
Wow.
When I set out, I thought that I could do it in around 19 hours. That was kind of my hope, but
Okay.
the wheels kind of fell off a few different times, and it took me a little bit longer than I'd hoped.
Sure. Understandable, I'd say. No one's going to bust you over an extra 90 minutes or anything like that. how useful, because one of the things that we saw with Joe Galley and our local and our community was there was aid stations set up every so often.
Hmm.
How useful were those to you as you went through your distance?
Oh man, I would not have made it without them.
Wow.
I mean, beyond the needing to like refuel and have a snack, just the seeing the people coming out, I didn't expect that. We were still kind of newly into this whole COVID experience, and so I really didn't expect a lot of people to turn out for it. But every aid station I had, even the ones overnight, there were people there to cheer me on and give me a thumbs up, and it was pretty amazing. There was even a mom and a daughter met us north of Algonquin and said, "We've been following your story. Can we run along with you?"
Wow.
And so of course I let them. It was very cool. I
Did you
really
have
felt
a
like Forrest Gump then.
Yeah, man, you got your whole your flock behind you.
Yeah.
Did you have I know Joe ran with you for the last 9 miles or so. Did you have other people kind of tag on for distances, or did you kind of say, "Hey, I got to kind of keep my own pace, so I appreciate it, but don't do that."
No, actually, I had someone with me the entire time.
Okay.
I had different people rotating through. People would just volunteer to run X amount of miles, and then they'd stop and get shuttled back to their vehicle, and someone new would jump in, and
Yeah.
so that was good, especially overnight. It's hard to keep moving, when you're in the woods in the dark, and there's no no end in sight, and
Oh, yeah.
so it was good to have somebody with you there.
So what do you think is harder? Hour 4 of 21 or hour 18?
I think the lowest I got was like 2 or 3 hours in. It
Okay.
was when I was between Algonquin and Seville. There's a really wooded area, and I kept thinking that I was thinking of landmarks that I knew were coming up, and because it's so dark, I didn't completely have my bearings,
Hmm.
so I felt like it was taking me too long to get to those landmarks. Like, why am I not at this spot yet?
Hmm.
And it was really, really messing with my head. Like it was getting me down. It was like it was getting the better of me. And I don't remember how I was able to stop it, but eventually I realized that I was doing it and was like, all right, let's just enjoy the run and
Hmm.
don't worry about where you're at. You'll get there eventually. Just keep moving.
Wow. And then, so what point did you know, like, all right, this is very uncomfortable, but I got this. Like, this is gonna this. I'm definitely following through. I'm not pulling out. Was there a point halfway or like 3/4 away where you knew it was in the bag, but you're gonna suffer a little bit?
Well, I never doubted that I would finish.
Okay.
It was just in a matter of how long. There was a point as I was coming into Elgin on the way back, my hip was in a rough spot. Like it hurt to sit, it hurt to stand, it hurt to breathe.
Hmm.
But I had my running coach is a physical therapist, and she had someone there, and they like worked the muscles out in my hip. So I ended up being at that Elgin aid station for more than an hour,
Wow.
just getting that worked out. And I think that I like to think I would have finished if they weren't there to work the muscle out, but who knows,
I will give him some credit. Why not?
Yeah, yeah,
It's a team effort, right? Even though you're the one putting in the miles, it's I guess we
yeah,
can give other people a little bit of a tip of the cap once in a while.
yeah, definitely.
Wow, man. Um, okay, so we're gonna get back to that because I think I have a lot more questions as we go through it.
Sure.
So you decided to let's rewind. You decided to do Run for Our Lives. In the process of planning that, the decision was made that hey, your career is likely ending imminently. You went back to Alexian and you started in their program. And this is where we're going to start talking a little bit more generalities, I think, because your process is still ongoing. So, however you want to handle the story from Alexian until essentially now, why don't you take us through whatever details you want to give, and then we'll get into what we talked about before this, which was a treatment you're doing, which I'm very, very interested in because it's very new and very exciting.
Sure, sure, yeah. That was a good teaser. Keep people glued to their seats.
Yeah.
Um, so I left the job in October of 19 and almost immediately enrolled into Alexian. It was my last shift was October 3rd, and I was declared unfit for duty on the 8th. So I think it was the 12th I was enrolled in the program at Alexian. So within a week or two of being an Alexian, that's when I filed for my pension and the work comp and all of that. So the process started then. And I finished the program at Alexian the following January. So I was in there for 3 months, a little more than 3 months. And I came out feeling strong again. I had more resilience and more like tools in my toolbox to help address the things that were going on for me. But I also knew that if I kept reintroducing new traumas through the job, I was going to end up right there again or worse,
Mm.
So that was hard to deal with because like I'm physically fit, I
Right.
should be able to do this job and I couldn't. And then that leads to like guilt and shame and like I felt like I was abandoning my crew and
Hmm.
like all those bad feelings that your brain will just lay on you as much as you can take. So going through the program at Alexian like really helped me make amends with those feelings and like rationalize with them and they still pop up occasionally. I'll still get that pang of guilt or something, but I've got enough tools now that I can work myself through those things.
And I think it's worth saying too that not to say your feelings were invalid because obviously they were not, but you were probably still getting support from the very people you thought were ashamed of you or you were embarrassing, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. The local has been nothing but supportive the entire time. It was just people checking in on my wife, making sure the kids are good, calling me, making sure I'm good,
Yeah.
donating time to keep me paid. I left the job in October and they kept me paid until the end of January. It
Wow.
was
How big
just
is
a
the
lot of.
how big is the local there?
We're small local where there's only 35 people, so I mean
Holy cow.
to keep me paid for as long as they did was just very humbling.
Yeah, I mean that's fantastic. And that just goes to show the power of what you were going through was you have all that tangible support and still you feel just the way you do, you know.
Yeah, the brain will do funny things to you if you let it.
Yeah, right. Wow, man. Um okay. So, like we said, your process is still ongoing. We're not going to get into too much in this episode. I do want to talk about ketamine because we spoke before about this and it seems to be a complete game changer. It's something that I am really interested in just in general because I really feel like we're on the verge of a lot of new revolutionary therapies and ketamine seems to be one of those where you look at it and you're like there's no possible way this is ever going to fly and then you hear just awesome results from it. So tell me about it, man. Tell me about
Yeah,
what you're
yeah.
doing. I'm pumped to hear about this.
So there was an article in the Chicago Tribune about me and about Run for Our Lives and all that. And as a result of that article, I got a lot of outreach from various sources. One of them being a doctor who wanted to offer me free treatment for ketamine. And my initial reaction was, yeah, okay, thanks, bud. I'm gonna go in and this guy's gonna be Dr. Nick from The Simpsons.
Yeah.
There's no way. I'm not doing ketamine. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Um, but it was kind of always in the back of my mind that was there, and I started. I started struggling again. You know, I had a really rough 4th of July last year. There were no public fireworks displays, so it felt like every house in my subdivision took it upon themselves to have their own professional grade fireworks display. And fireworks don't, they're not great for me. Just the, like, if I'm watching them and I can see them going off, it's fine. It's not a, but when they're going off unexpectedly, that really does, it really messes with my head. It's very, very uncomfortable for me. So that night, like, just pushed me over the edge. Like, I can't deal with this anymore. I need to do something. And I remembered hearing that the VA was starting to do ketamine treatment. And so that kind of got me back on that thought, was okay, if it's good enough for the VA, then maybe there's something to it. Maybe
Yeah.
I should look into it. So like I came up with like this grocery list of questions that I wanted to ask. And I set a phone interview up with the doctor. And he's like, before you ask any questions, let me give you my quick spiel, and then if you have any other questions afterwards, I'll answer anything. And he gives me a spiel, and like he had my piece of paper in front of him, like every concern I had, he addressed and like explained the way it worked, and it just like I hung up that phone conversation feeling like I just talked to somebody I'd known my whole life. It just
Wow.
made me feel so comfortable and at ease with the idea that I was sold. And so I went in for my first treatment. You do 6 to 7 treatments within like a 2 week period to like build up the ketamine in your body.
Okay.
I did the first treatment, and when I came out of it, because you kind of go in like it's like if you're Loathing in Las Vegas kind of thing, it's like it's like an acid trip. I
Okay.
don't know how to describe it without using like a movie reference for someone that's never experienced it. It's just um, it's very unique experience. So I came out of that and I was really dizzy and I threw up and I felt awful, and I was like, I don't ever want to do this again. But but I did. I went back the second time and I told them what had happened. So they adjusted a few things, and they gave me some Benadryl and some Zofran for the nausea, and the second treatment was absolutely fine. And I did those 7 treatments, and it was like around treatment 5 or 6, I think, where I started to notice a difference. And I describe it as like with PTSD, you kind of have like this badness, like this heavy bad feeling just kind of always there. You know, um, you can still feel other things, but like there's always this bad heaviness around you.
Hmm.
And it was gone. Like I felt lighter,
Wow.
and I said something to my wife, and she's like, I noticed it too. I'm glad to have you back.
Whew. Yikes.
Yeah, that was a when she said that, I was like, oh man, this was the right thing to do. I'm so glad I did this.
Wow.
And so now I'm to the point where I just do booster treatments like every 6 to 7 weeks, and
Oh, okay.
that's enough to keep me pretty pretty good. It doesn't like take away any of my traumas. Like, I still know they're there. I still have like one of the things for me is like I'll have like, if my kids are playing, I'll like see like the absolute worst case scenario where
Hmm.
like they come into this horrible accident or
Right.
something. Just like I can't unsee it. And so that used to like derail me. Like I'd see it and then I'd be like this helicopter parent, and don't touch that, don't do this, and like I
Yeah.
couldn't. I needed to protect them. And so that still happens, but I'm able to like rationalize with it now, and I can I'll have the thought, and I'll say, well, no, that's not gonna happen,
Yeah.
and so it just makes it easier to reconcile with the memories of the trauma and the bad feelings and the uncomfortable emotions that come up. It just it it's like somebody said it's like using a cheat code on a video game.
Hmm.
You still have to do everything. It just makes it a little bit easier.
Wow. Man, the mechanism of that is just so difficult to understand. Like, so you build up a therapeutic level, and then it hangs out for up to 6 weeks, and then so I guess one of my questions is, when you go every 6 weeks or so, and you get dosed, right?
Mhm.
Do you feel exceptional directly following that, and then it fades, or is it more like you go up and you stay up, and then it kind of falls off like a cliff, or how does it process?
No, it's kind of a gradual thing for me.
Okay,
Typically the day of treatment, I'm pretty wiped out for that day, but I'll wake up the next morning and I mean it's not like, you wake up and like it's one of those you're super smiley and,
right.
everything's rainbows and unicorns and everything. It's just you you just feel normal
Huh.
again, and it lasts. It's hard to describe. Like I won't really notice that I'm not feeling that anymore. It's just like I'll catch myself doing something that I wouldn't have done. Like I'll catch myself having allowing one of those intrusive thoughts to like let me dwell on it, or
Sure. Yeah.
I'll catch myself snapping at one of my kids or at my wife for something that shouldn't bother me, you
Hmm.
know. And that's when I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I do. I have an appointment in a few days, don't I? Yeah, I do. Okay."
Have you noticed? Have you noticed in times of higher stress, or like when you're training and you're using a lot more calories and your metabolism's running a lot faster and you're processing more? Does it get processed more? So you have to go in every 3 to 4 weeks then, or is it kind of
I
independent
will
of any of those variables?
I will tell you in a few months.
Oh,
When I
no,
was
that's right. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, when I was doing a lot of training for Run for Our Lives last year, I hadn't started yet, so I
Okay.
haven't done a lot of high volume running yet. I'm still building up to that. So yeah,
Okay.
I don't really know yet.
What about like just more stressful times in general? Have you noticed you burned it off quicker when you're is that a thing, or is it pretty
I don't
independent of that?
know. I'm not
Sure.
sure. That's a good question. I
Yeah.
haven't noticed
Right.
any difference. Like I haven't noticed that I was super stressed for a week and I needed treatment sooner.
Right.
I haven't really made that connection yet.
Okay. Yeah, it's just so interesting, man. I appreciate you being willing to talk about it, because there's definitely a stigma that comes with any sort of previously and still controlled substance that is being used medicinally now, obviously. Um, yeah, it's just so interesting. And I'm obviously, I hope you don't undergo any duress while you learn these things, but it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with your volume intensifying and the day of the race, but man, it sounds like a game changer. So I'm really glad you decided to trust Dr. Nick and go
Yeah.
and go
Yeah,
for it.
me too. I feel like an infomercial for for the company because I'm like all my veteran buddies and my friends that I met at the center. I'm like, hey, you guys need to check this out. This is amazing.
You're
It's so
pushing
good.
drugs
It's
on
helping me.
everybody.
Right? Yeah.
Great. Like, oh, he's over there slinging ketamine. Great.
Yeah.
Have you had so what's the general feedback from it? Are lots of people at a point where they're just they're willing to look into it because of desperation, or is there still, from your just kind of social feedback, is there still kind of an opposition to it because of its stigma?
Yeah. I think it's not real prevalent yet. There aren't a lot of places that do it. So I
Okay.
think I think the access right now is pretty limiting. And insurances don't pay for it yet either.
Mm,
So it's an expensive treatment. If I wasn't gifted the treatments by the scholarship fund that the doctor got me into, there's no way I could afford it.
wow.
It's very nothing's cheap in the medical world.
All right. Yeah, no kidding, man. All right, so this wasn't meant to turn into a ketamine podcast, but um, like I said, it's just so interesting. So let's transition now to what's going on now. So you're getting ready for the second running of Run for Our Lives,
Mhm.
and um, I think I mentioned it before. I signed up for your virtual event, so we have until May 22nd to run that insane number of mileage or kilometerage. How you feeling going into this year? How's your training looking? What are you looking forward to?
I'm feeling optimistic about the run for myself this year. Last year I trained a little bit differently than I'm doing it this year. I think I'm doing it a little smarter this year.
Nice.
Last year, I had never the most I'd run going into last year's event was 50K.
Okay.
So this was significantly more for me. So I went into training with the mindset of I need as much volume as I can get. I need all the
Mm,
miles, you know. So
yeah.
I didn't care how long it took me. I was a lot of miles. And this year I'm doing less volume and more like cross training and speed work and
Nice.
stuff like that. Yeah. So I'm hoping it's going to make me a little bit stronger, so I can finish stronger than I did last year. I really struggled the last like 30 miles. I'd say were pretty rough
Hmm.
last year. So I'm hoping to be stronger this year.
That's such a funny statement. Like that's not that. Of course, you struggled last 30 miles. Like what? Shocker. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I
Anybody can run 50. It's that last 30 that'll get you.
yeah, it's like the point two, right, of the marathon.
Yeah.
Um, well, I mean, I'll tell you, you definitely will be. I don't know your program, but adding in that cross training or some other well-rounded strength and conditioning program, in addition to just mileage, the gym I used to work for, we saw just incredible results from the people who were hardcore distance, piling the distance. You know, I'm going to get better by running. I'm going to get better at running by running more.
Hmm.
Plagued by injuries, and then they came to us for leading up to like a Chicago or a Boston marathon, maybe 4 or 6 months before, and we kept it smart, kept the loads manageable, weren't looking to destroy anybody, and just the
Hmm.
addition of that, some awesome results. So I'm really happy you added that, and I'm confident also just hearing that it's going to be much more enjoyable than last year, and you'll be able to kind of look left to right, not just straight down over the
Yeah.
course of 1.5 million miles. Uh, how's Danielle doing with it?
She's good. She's doing the virtual event also.
Awesome.
She's not a runner. Um, she says she doesn't run unless she's chased. So she's gonna walk her miles,
That's
which is good. But the day of, she's got it worse than I do, honestly. She drives my minivan and like meets me at all the checkpoints and stays up just as long as I do, but she doesn't have the running to keep her going. She's just mainlining coffee and Red Bull, I think, to keep her going.
man. You know what though? I think I've talked to her firsthand once. I've seen her speak, I think twice now, about Run for Our Lives and everything, and I can't imagine her on excess amounts of caffeine. I mean, she has got it going on, man. She is just
Yeah,
rocking and rolling
stay
all
out
the
of her
time.
way. If you see a coffee in her hand, she means business.
She is a catalyst for good stuff, man. So pass along my thanks to her for
I
for
will.
everything she's done with you and the organization so far in the movement. Anything else you want to tack on? Any other important parts of your story? Please don't hesitate to just ramble as long as you want. But I want you to also close with something you want to leave for somebody listening. And I think the most meaningful message would be to somebody that you may think is in the position you were in before you got help, during you, while you're getting help, kind of in that sticky spot of feeling guilty, feeling shameful, feeling stigmatized. So go ahead and add whatever extra you want onto this, whatever information we missed, and then let's close out with some words to those who were 2019 Ryan Maines.
Um, I need to start with that because I just had a thought and I don't want to lose it.
Get it? Yeah, go for it.
um, so I think the most important thing for anyone that is struggling is to understand that being vulnerable isn't weakness. Like that's one of those things that you say all the time. Yeah, yeah, you got to open up, you got to talk. You know, that's strong stuff. It's important stuff. But until you're like physically in that, you don't really get it. And it felt so uncomfortable for me to allow myself to be vulnerable and to express my feelings to people. That's not what we do. That's not who we are. We fix things. We're the fixers. We don't need help. So allowing yourself to be vulnerable and know that that's okay. The strength that takes, or that gives you rather, is just it's freeing, realizing that. So it's okay to open up.
That's awesome, man. And I think that's perfect too, because I think that's the starting point, right? And you
Yeah,
said yourself, you were kind of you were the one pushing everyone else to go to CISDs and to talk about it, when you yourself was kind of like keeping it at arm's length. But then eventually, obviously, you crossed over and actually doing it, and then that's when the growth actually started happening. So I think thank you for that advice, and I hope anybody listening who needs that, if you're not ready to hear it, then save this episode and play it again once a week until you're ready to hear it, because that's perfect. And I hope that if that lands on ears that need it, that you feel comfortable enough reaching out to your support system, to the Illinois Firefighter Peer Support Network, to wherever you are, whatever your local support group is, or just somebody somebody that's a friend, a buddy, a colleague, a supervisor, a superior, subordinate. I think you'll be surprised, and Ryan, you can back me up on this. I think you'd be surprised how many people actually care about you once you look for it and once you're willing to open up to them. A lot more people are on your side, and a lot more people want to see you succeed and see you feel good than you probably could ever imagine.
agreed. Well said. And not only that, people are having a lot of those similar feelings. You're not the only one experiencing the bad feelings. So talking about it makes the person next to you realize that it's okay to talk about it too. And so now when you're opening up, you're actually helping someone else. And that makes it easier to open up, and it makes it easier for the next person, and so on. So it's a it's a good momentum to start.
Yeah. 1 mile at a time, right? 1 kilometer at a time. That's all we can do is
Exactly.
keep on moving forward. All right, man. Why don't you share? If people want to check out Run for Our Lives, check out you, get in contact with you, get involved with the day of event. I know the registration's closed for the virtual run, but how can people get a hold of you and kind of see what's going on?
Yeah, definitely. We have a Facebook page, Run for Our Lives. We're also on Instagram. We have a website, run-for-our-lives.org.
Cool. And then once again, the money you raise from this, from the virtual event and any kind of donations, is going to the the Illinois Firefighter Peer Support, right?
Right. Yeah. Everything that's donated, it goes straight to Illinois Firefighter Peer Support, and all the registrations from the virtual event, once the swag is paid for, all the proceeds go to Illinois Firefighter Peer Support. So they get like 90% of the registration
That's awesome, man.
fees.
That's
Yeah.
that's monster. So, dude, awesome. Do you have anything else you want to throw out there? Anything else to add? Do we skip over anything? Do we miss anything?
I want to give Black and Gray some love,
Oh yeah,
because
yeah,
they,
yeah. I thought about that.
yeah,
I wrote it down. I forgot to come back to it.
Black and Gray Brewing, actually last year brewed a special beer just for Run for Our Lives called End the Stigma. I'm a little biased, but it was my favorite beer they had last year. um,
It was awesome. I got
yeah, it was
two of
a
the oil cans full of it.
yeah, it
It was
was
awesome.
really good.
Yeah.
I'm not an IPA guy, so when Chris suggested that, I was like, okay, I guess you're the expert.
Right.
And then I tried it, and I was like, I like IPAs.
Turns
This
out.
is good stuff. Yeah, so they're gonna brew again this year for us. They're gonna they're brewing 3 times as much. So it's it was a very popular beer last year, and they donated 10% of the proceeds to Run for Our Lives, which was just amazing. And they're going to do that again this year.
Awesome. So it's Black and Gray Brewing. It's in East Dundee if you're in Illinois. It's firefighter owned. And yeah, if you're in the area and you want some good beer from a really cool place, check out Black and Gray. And especially, when are they brewing it? When are they going to have it?
I don't know exactly when it's going to be ready. It'll definitely be ready by May, but I think probably pretty soon.
Oh, beautiful, man. Hey guys, Chris again. Sorry, choppy ending to that one. Ryan and I kind of got sidetracked and started talking about different topics. But thank you, Ryan, so much for coming on and telling your story. Like I said, we'll have you back on once your case resolves because there's a lot to tell about that. But guys, please go to Ryan's Instagram, go to Run for Our Lives Instagram, check out what he's doing. Like he said in the episode, all the proceeds go to the Illinois Firefighter Peer Support, who is the group that helped him during his darkest times. And so the more funding we can get them, the better off we are as a fire service because the more people they can help. If you want to check out my journey through Ryan's Run for Our Lives, just check out my Instagram. We post in the stories. I've been doing 2-mile runs, between 1.5 to 2-mile runs. I've been running most of 1.5 miles and not walking for very much. Anyways, check it out. As always, guys, thanks for listening. I love your feedback. Keep it coming. Talk to you soon, and be a 4-shifter.